A match that, hey, in maybe 8 to 9 weeks may not be the same level of consequence, but for now, this is very much for a top 3 spot.
Yeah, it's like the battle for definitive 4th place, I believe, right now, but it's only going to be equal with that of KT, who have looked interesting of late as well, so certainly could go either way. But first ban is going to be Rumble away from Helper. So on a little bit more of that carry player, Papa Smithy up towards the top side, having given the fact that we have only seen Ixu so far.
Yeah, definitely by reputation. So1 was looking really good in the promotion tournament. Ixu started and was playing carries. His Jace from game 1 with Death Dance was an indication that Ixu has also buffed up his carry pool. But although So1 has been one of the more impressive recent converts to Rumble, Helper is one of these OG Rumble players, so they don't want to first pick it. They'll show respect, and basically they're looking for where Syndra will come through, because Kuzan has definitely played it, but he's not on Scepted's level when it comes to the Syndra. So champions like Syndra and Orianna, through the course of this draft, I think will be contested.
Yeah, and I actually think it's really, really interesting as well, looking at Kuzan's playstyle as well. This guy's been basically a Galio bot for most of the time, wants to get on these sort of beefy control-type champions in the mid lane, whereas Scepted wants to take the game by the horns and beat the crap out of it himself.
And Galio's been basically a mid lane pick, you're right.
Whoa.
It's been all about containing mid laners with the Galio, then being able to have the global impact from the heroic entrance. As I mentioned, the Kuzan's not big on the Syndra, doesn't want to play against it either, so I guess a little bit awkward that they have to ban it on blue side, but so far this season, Jin Air has banned Syndra on blue and red side, so it continues the trend.
Yeah, and it's intelligent to ban it away. Of course, 5-0 so far in LCK, and she's been first picked. We saw it a few days ago. Syndra just pretty unanswerable at the moment, as Elise is going to be the final ban. So Lee Sin sticking out like a little bit of a sore thumb.
And it's a big pick as well, so heavily expect it to be a first pick Lee Sin. They're showing the LeBlanc, which has been very low priority, so that's just going to be a bit of flair, maybe showing what's available.
Yeah,
but
bit of a psych out, perhaps.
Basically, Kuzan really wants Scepted to play LeBlanc so he can play Lissandra, because Lissandra has always been one of those safe picks into LeBlanc through many metas, and Kuzan is our resident Lissandra.
Yes, and certainly does like to play these control-based mages in the mid lane. Looks like our jungle is going to be snapped up relatively early here, Papa Smithy, as Graves being considered. Sort of the second tier of junglers still, despite his nerfs in recent patches, but hasn't had the success that he formerly did.
I mean, Marang made his name on some Afrika streams from his mechanics on Graves. He was on point with the Q and R animation cancels, but of course animation cancels no longer part of Graves' kit. They were removed in the recent patches, so not going to be as mechanically intensive as he was before, but he is, again, very comfortable on the Graves, as Malrang's KDA was another one to note when we looked at those pre-match statistics, and Duel is going to be jumping on utility. It's all about Scepted when it comes to true calories, so no surprise to see Ashe on the Rift.
Yep, snapped up the classic utility AD carry. Looking over the side of Jin Air, we'll see what Teddy wants to be bringing to the Rift. Caitlyn makes a heck of a lot of sense. It is going to be locked away. So wanting to make sure he has as much money as possible in that mid-game, get towards those 3 items and take over himself.
Yeah, whenever you see Caitlyn, you can kind of plug and play that the team wants to take a tank in the top lane, take the enemy bot lane turret early, and just have Kate wave clear in mid lane. That's pretty much the standard play style with a champion like Caitlyn. You see Karma being selected here, especially after we saw Samsung recently and Crown just playing in the mid lane. Once again is the flex pick, because people are really experimenting with both the support and carry mid lane builds. So true flex pick on the blue side is always a nice thing to pick up.
Yep.
If you're gonna play mid lane Galio, mid lane Karma is very much the same play.
I would have personally liked Jin Air to take the second round Zaya and Rakan, because Snowflower, of course, had a fantastic MVP performance on the Rakan for the first time in LCK, as Scepted is going to lock away the Orianna, and his stats haven't been great so far, but man, he's played this champion extraordinarily well in the past.
Yeah, played it twice against Afrika. Both games were losses, but his Orianna play was of note. He was very on point mechanically, so I don't think they're losing out on anything by locking in the Orianna. They're going to be happy with a Karma matchup, and, you know, traditionally Orianna has mostly pretty decent matchups. Surprisingly this week, we've seen a lot of self-counter picks of the Victor being opted into against both Galio and Orianna, and just been looking for late-game team fights. Now, early laning phase, specifically mid-laning phase, not fantastic on the on the Victor versus Orianna. You get shoved in, but otherwise can be fine in the late game. And look at this, a Blitzcrank ban at comeback.
Yep, both of the hook champions removed.
Blitzcrank was max only, and now we've seen Key play it a couple of times. Now Hachani or Comeback is drawing bans on it.
Are we ready to say Blitzcrank is a meta support?
I was about to say somehow we've chanced upon a Blitzcrank meta. Life's good, Atlas.
That is the dream. I just hope that it doesn't overflow into solo queue because that is my worst nightmare. Well, Zyra is going to be the final ban on the side of Ever8, targeting Snowflower still with that particular one. And there is the Shen to be taken away from Helper. His Gragas still certainly there.
And that's what you'd expect. He had a really bad game on Gragas versus Mara and got solo killed 3 times in lane, which was unacceptable on Gragas versus Rumble. But Gragas sticks out as the power top lane tank to be selected. Feels like one of the 2 teams will pick it up for certain. See if Ever8 want to go in a different direction, though. Could just pick support for now. Tom Kench. Given that they're expecting Kuzan to be taking the mid lane Karma, Tom Kench not great into the Karma in lane, but can do decently, but obviously is a great answer to engage support.
I also like taking the Tom Kench away from Jinna here as well, given the fact that the arrow will be there towards the bottom side of the map, and that can seem pretty frustrating. Sorry, the Devour. Pretty frustrating to deal with.
Looking for a blind pick top laner with one of these picks, and Jarvan has really jumped to be a highly contested top lane tank, and because Jarvan wasn't selected at Duel's pick, it also does really well against Gragas because during his ultimate animation, he cannot actually be interrupted. So we see the Jarvan being locked in. Rakan without Xayah would be a big risk. Snowflower already won an MVP on Rakan. Do they feel like they can run it without all the inherent buffs you get in lane? I don't think so.
Oh no, they're going to switch it up though as Talia is going to be picked, and that Karma is going to be moving towards the bottom side of the map.
They're trying to get a better matchup in mid, who have the early push advantage against Orianna, but obviously later into the laning phase, you don't get the same sort of advantage, so going to be a lot of pressure on Kuzan to make things work, and his Weaver's walls have been very good when we've seen it. Looking back to Ever8, need a top laner. Taking Fiora into Jarvan is a risk, and also Helper has not necessarily been someone they've piled resources into, but they will lock in the Fiora, and surprisingly, they're actually going to focus on Helper as their person to play around, because compared to the top lane tanks who are kind of expecting, you need a lot more resources put into the Fiora to get the same impact.
Yeah, and he's played Shen 3 times, the Gragas once, and then 1 Rumble game, which did look very good. 3-0 to, I believe.
But he's always been a Rumble player.
He has.
Fiora is very different.
Oh, yeah.
The Hoonies of the world, the Smemps of the world, absolutely. And Fiora is strong in this meta, but you don't just jump onto Fiora. You need to have quite a lot of mastery, and you need your team to put resource into him. They're already building around Scepted. Will this be pressure off of Scepted and a lot of extra camp in the top lane, or will this be something different? It's a risky choice and a surprising one, given Ever8's 5 games we've seen so far on the LCK stage.
Yeah, and also given Jinna's ability to camp the top side of the map extraordinarily efficiently as well.
Likes sending a camp up top lane. Linderung, of course, famously felt the brunt of it. That was with Ixu, first game of So1, but he's carry-minded already, so the top lane could have a lot of fireworks.
Yeah, well, we'll see whether it works out. Kuzan with that last-minute flex over to the Talia instead of the potential Karma in the mid lane is exciting. But it is just going to be Control Mage versus Control Mage. A lot of wave clear to happen in that mid lane. Now Caitlyn Karma, the oppressive pushing lane against the Ashe Kench. Could be difficult for Ever8 winners in the early game.
It'll be a fun one to track. They went for a pushing lane instead of just the safe Karma mid. See how the top lane pans out because of it.
Yeah, still a lot of question marks for both of these teams. We'll see who can come out ahead in game number 1 as we hit the Rift. Fans not quite getting there. Game number 1. Hopefully game number 2 will be a little bit of a different story. As there, finally, we can see some of them on your screen right now.
The Ever8 fans want something to cheer for, and honestly, the start has been better than expected for Ever8. Jumping into LCK, there was an interview with Scepted pre-season who said, look, until we prove otherwise, we are the 10th place team. And I gotta say, sure, it's a small sample size, but so far they haven't looked like a dead last team, like perhaps Kongdu Monster could have been called for a lot of their LCK tenure.
Well, I mean, right now, they're a 4th place team. And no one's going to argue with me for that, because it's entirely correct.
It is still patch 7.10 if you're wondering. I know a lot of other leagues seem to be jumping onto 7.11 this week, but because the Korean client patches on a Wednesday and our season starts on a Tuesday, we are usually 1 week behind in patches, so no 7.11 changes if you're wondering at home.
Yeah, wondering whether you can go get a Slurpee, sort of thing. 7-11 patch, it's going to definitely be an overused joke, and I'm sorry, guys.
But we don't have a 7-11 personal sponsorship, Atlas, so hold on to that one.
Well, I mean, there's one just down the road from my house. I'll see whether I can sort something out. A Snowflower is going to find comeback. And, oh, that Peacemaker was very close.
It's going to back, which probably going to just cancel it. You take a bit of health regen on Tahm Kench if you so choose. Should be fine regardless. No big leash coming through from top lane. There's no Galio in mid lane either to pop over a nice leash. So jungle's going to be a little bit slower in this game, both starting at Raptors, predictably.
Yeah, and only 3 Doran shields, Papa Smithy.
It's early in the day. There's still time.
Still time to get to the magic number of 24 Doran shields in a day.
Not going to give a prediction this time, but the Doran shield meta's not going away anytime soon. There's some PvE nerfs, but patch 7.12 is a long way away, so I think our new Doran shields overlords are going to be joining us for at least half the season.
Certainly hope so. I sort of love it myself. Counting Doran shields is my new favorite game. But you can see Jules struggling a little bit as Kuzan is being discovered by Malrong, who's doing a lot of damage. That red buff still ticking down. Has the flash, but doesn't decide to use it. Kuzan's going to have to go home.
You see the advantage of Storm Raider's Surge on the Graves. The first 2 auto attacks procced Storm Raiders, and that's why Kuzan had to use both summoners to try to get away. Malrong considered flashing on him, but he wouldn't have quite had enough damage, and End of the Line had both its base damage nerfed and has a very long cooldown at level 1, so no chance to pick up the kill, but hey, blowing both summoners is a successful gank. Whatever way you look at it, you know, getting a kill is obviously the gold standard, but 2 summoners is usually the sign of a good gank, so good job, Malrong. You got a bonus double summoner gank.
Yeah, and 2 potions there as well. So Scepted, we've already been singing his praises, but now his lane just got a whole lot easier. Of course, Orianna, not a heck of a lot of kill pressure very early on, but can certainly bully you out of that lane.
And Malrong also has done a solid, because if you consider the texture of the lanes, Jarvan will push in Fiora, who has no wave clear. Catilia early will push in Orianna. And Kate Karma are going to be under the turret of Ashe Tahm Kench. So getting 2 summoners when they have pushing lanes is hard, as Malrong also predicts Umti in the brush. So actually saw the Scuttlecrab die, so less predictions required. But getting 2 summoners when all your lanes are going to be pushed in is actually pretty big for Malrong.
Yeah. And also the fact that he was able to bully out Umti as well. He's really taking control of the map thus far. Now going to take his Krug camp before possibly heading home, grabbing that tracker's knife. See where Umti is going to go, whether he actually heads towards the top side of the map. He's just going to Scryer's Bloom his way through the jungle, get rid of this ward in the river.
The playstyle here for Umti is to actually be the battle ward that we used to call Peanut very affectionately when he was on the Rocks Tigers. When you have 3 pushing lanes, it unlocks you as a jungler to steal away enemy camps and even try to kill the enemy jungler, because your laners will always react first, because Ever8 will lose CS in every lane because they're being pushed in. So a lot of options here for Umti. If he just passively farms, he's kind of losing out on the efficiency of choosing 3 pushing lanes, because 3 pushing lanes is literally the gold standard of any draft in League of Legends right now.
Yeah, at the moment, it's certainly 2 pushing lanes, but Kuzan falling behind a little bit. Scepted. Look at Teddy, so much harassment onto Jewel. He's very low on mana, so not a lot of Peacemakers to fly through, but that massive range is certainly helping him keep down the Ever8 winners bottom lane, which was certainly something to be expected.
Ward has got a lot of value from, I believe it was Malrong earlier, spotting that Umti is on the bot side jungle twice now. And Talia was more pushing lane rather than getting every CS, so that's why she's fallen behind in CS a little bit. Right now pushing it away, probably about 4 behind overall, if you consider the fact that the wave will be picked up by Orianna. Yeah, so far Jin really focusing on pushing lanes and thus putting down things like control wards. Every time Malrong tries to push up and act in the river, he's never going to have first reaction. Risky times for Ever8, as Jin can do whatever they want, but that only matters if they complete everything. Hey, if you push all your lanes in, don't contest the enemy jungle, and it just ends up being trading a farm, then you're not getting value out of your draft.
Well, now you can see Malrong is hanging out towards this bottom side. This pink ward's going to spot him, so everyone on Jin well and truly aware of what Malrong's doing, at least until this ward is taken down.
He's on 6. Thought about roaming to top with the Weaver's Wall.
Helper, of course, with that lunge and the flash still available, will be absolutely okay. Got a teleport being held onto here by Soan, though, as he's still ahead by 10 CS. That Tiamat already in his back pocket.
Not sure if Snowflower spotted Malrung with the first bit of vision as he put down a ward, but regardless, Malrung's on a walk.
Kuzan's easily clearing out this wave now. So only 9 CS behind after all that brutalization early on, and his flash will be up very, very soon. As Ever8 winners seem to have found themselves some normalcy, but Jules still going down extraordinarily low. God, comeback. You have to be careful, buddy. That Peacemaker, not making a lot of peace. That's like a War Maker right there.
Definitely seems to be. Malrung staying bottom side just to clear waves, given that Duel and Comeback both have to back. Let's see how Alpha deals here. Umti's here this time.
Surprise, surprise! Umti's ganking the top lane. What was that sound, Fiora? Excuse me?
Umti's actually going to find Helper. Uses his W. Riposte is down. Not enough damage.
Yeah, down to half health, though, means that Soan's going to have an easier time, and Helper without the teleport doesn't really want to stay up there.
But remember what I talked about in the draft. When you have the Caitlyn Karma bot lane, your real goal is to take bot lane turrets. So forcing Ashe and Tahm Kench out of lane, getting auto attacks in the bot lane turret, teleporting down with the Jarvan CC, and then sending Kate Karma mid is the early game plan when you have these pushing lanes and you elected for something like the Jarvan top lane rather than the Fiora kind of top lane. So far, things have gone to plan for Jin Air, but their big objective is not necessarily to gank top, but to really find a way to knock down this bot lane turret.
Caitlyn certainly helping out at the moment. Snowflake, you can see, on a bit of a merry walk in the river, will find himself come back.
Have vision here of Malrung.
There's a flag and drag. Oh, Cataclysm, good flash. As Malrung gets himself out, but does still have to use that summoner.
Sort of thing you can do when you have these pushing lanes. We've said pushing lanes so many times, but they really are the source of all the advantages for Jin Air in the early game. There's no opportunity cost because of those pushing lanes for making these plays. But again, it's all about what they can make happen at the timers they've chosen for, because in the late game, Fiora's split push is going to be largely unanswerable. Great team fight comp from the rest of Ever8 winners. There's no inevitability about it, but there's a lot of power for Ever8 that's been invested in with their relatively weak early lane phase.
Yeah. Well, at the moment, they have actually evened out the gold. There was about a 400 gold lead for Jin Air. Now it's creeping back up, but was evened out, at least for a moment. He's looking to try and change that with the gang towards the bottom side. Hasn't been spotted just yet. Things are coming through. You can see already, still not seen. That route was so close, but the Q lands. Umti, he's going to get the kick. Oh, it's on the wrong character, unfortunately, but there's the Weaver's Wall, and that's going to be comeback falling down, most likely. Good heal from Jewel, but still, first blood goes to Teddy, and Umti takes a wild ride with the resonating strike and picks up the second one. This will be the turret as well. Big snowball for Jin Air.
Yeah, Jin Air gets everything they wanted, and Umti had that really difficult question to answer, Atlas. Who do you kick back in when there's a Tahm Kench? If they went for the kick on the Ashe, Tahm Kench would have had the Devour, but in the end, Devour came in, kicked back the Tahm Kench, and I think it was the correct decision, not even being results-orientated, because otherwise Devour would have answered. So Umti on point with his decision-making on the Lee Sin. The bot turret, what they were looking for with a draft like this is answered. They can send Caitlyn mid lane whenever they want, probably when she gets access to something like the Berserker's Greaves, or when Talia is feeling comfortable about her one-item power spike. And the game plan has hit its speaks, and has hit its exact stride in the first 10 minutes for Jin Air.
Yep, looking very good. I love the build from Teddy as well, opting in for the Zeal for the extra attack speed and then just flat AD to tear apart these structures as quickly as possible. Used to see this one a lot in sort of that fast-pushing meta from about a year ago, I believe. Time melds into one a little bit, Papa Smithy, but it certainly did happen where all these AD carries were picking up as much flat stats.
But let's talk about
killing champions.
Let's talk about the AD carry that has to deal with those flat stats, because Duel's like, well, I've got a recurve bow and a Vamp Scepter, so I'm just going to leave this lane. Duel has nowhere to go, and that's why Teddy has gone back bot lane, because even without a turret, especially without a turret behind the Ashe, she just has no ability to enter lane against the Caitlyn, and no control on the map, so Duel's just waiting for Teddy to push the lane, and that might take a little while.
Yeah, Possibly looking for a cheeky snipe arrow here in the mid lane as he's moving up the river. No vision available from Jinair, so it could be an opportunity. Still waiting in the wings. There's the grand challenge from Helper. Yeah, does grab a couple of these orbs. So on, just happily walking this one out. Has a lead. Experience, as Umpty's going to take a lot of damage. Helper still attacking, because that weak spot is in the wrong place for Helper, unfortunately.
A lot of mind games going on in the top lane. Every time So1 uses Q offensively, Fiora feels like she can all in because he doesn't have the EQ to get away.
Oh my god, this is disgusting. CS lead from Teddy is there's the shockwave. Lots of damage as Kuzan going to be taken down. Septiv grabs the first kill for Ever8. There's the second as he grabs the double. Jinair have to get the heck out, and this is exactly what we're talking about. Teddy, gigantic lead on the bottom side of the map, grabs first blood, but then Septiv answers back. The 2 carries for both of these teams.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mistake from Jinair to leave themselves exposed when they were basically denying Ashe in the bot lane. Ashe had to go mid. Speaking of going mid, Jarvan considering his options. Do they actually feel strong enough to engage here because Teddy doesn't have completed items yet? But coming back to it, if they were going to freeze in bot lane, you cannot overextend in mid lane. Ashe left lane, roamed to try to make something happen, and making something happen is what she did. That was more on Jinair overextending when it felt like they could win everywhere else on the map if they were a bit more respectful in mid.
Yeah. But Septiv now has his opportunity to start carrying this one out. As an Orianna, it's not necessarily one item that you're going to start doing that, but he's going to accelerate himself. See whether he goes for that Luden's Echo build just to try and get as much power as quickly as possible. Whether he goes for something else. I personally like Lianji's Torment, but I guess I've been infected by Crown and his ability to build items.
I think Luden's is kind of an old school build. It feels like Lianji's has replaced it. Similar gold cost. The Haunting guys feels really good to build for the extra magic pen early. Jinair continuing to dot the I's and cross the T's of at least the macro objectives that the coach would have spoken about, which is things like, hey, get that bot turret, get the Rift Herald, send Caitlyn mid lane. Those things are happening, but the micro in-game calling, like for example, not overextending, is one area they clearly will work on.
Oh yeah. 60 CS is the lead that Teddy has on the bottom side of the map.
And maybe he's just going to go top lane, and Fiora has a Tiamat, no other wave clear, so it's getting those turrets down early. Feels like a tutorial victory, but when you have this big a lead on AD carry, it's definitely an option you can take. 60 CS over Duel, who is just looking for his minion wave.
Yeah, he's trying to find any sort of minion wave. At the moment, he's in the river, so not quite aware that minions don't walk that way unless something goes very, very wrong or there's a realm walk.
Well, I mean, he has no defensive vision on his side. He has no support on his side. He gets minion waves when Teddy decides he can.
Kuzan almost. Oh, there it is, the solo kill from Septiv. Just waits for that command attack. The protect was there as well, and it just looks too easy.
I mean, the swagger he pulls this off, knowing the damage calculation. We saw him flashing aggressively for auto attacks in the 1v2 when we saw Ever8 play previously, and continuing that great play is they're going to take a mid lane turret against the flow of the game, as Septiv is kind of being a one-man army trying to keep Ever8 in the game with these losing lanes and with the early pressure being on Jinair's side.
Yeah, 2 top laners now being zoned away from these turrets, but Jinair are going to be able to extend that turret lead to 2-1 with this top lane outer falling. Can Ever8 winners actually get anything done, though? Because Marong trying to steal away this red buff, can't do it. So1's just going to come through and stab it with his big stick that he's got, and I guess that sort of makes sense. I don't know, giant spear versus shotgun. What really wins that battle is in goes the Rift Herald. We'll see what it's going to be able to do for itself. Comeback, turns up. But this guy's going to charge the turret, and it's going to take a heck of a lot of damage. That still just like gives me that feeling in the pit of my stomach.
Gives you the willies, doesn't it?
Oh, the willies! Exactly right. Exactly right.
That's my PG-13 word of the day.
Oh, it gives me the willies.
Look, you can even pronounce it like alfalfa or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's perfect.
Jinair's still trying to play the map, but you see the glaring errors they're making. The mid lane with Septiv getting the solo kill. Fun when the narrative out of game matches the in-game, where Teddy and Septiv are both beasting it up, both with insane CS advantage. 37 over a Taliyah doesn't sound like a lot, but the fact that it's Taliyah makes it pretty considerable, and Duel want us not talking about the CS advantage in the AD carry role.
Yeah, it's no, but I'm just a utility AD carry. I'm just Ashe. I
got the arrow in the mid lane, it's fine.
It's absolutely fine. I don't even really need to auto attack. It's totally okay. But he's going to have his Blade of the Ruined King relatively soon. This is the Weaver's Wall. Scepter
mid lane
doesn't
turret.
have flash as he just clears out the minions as best as he can. Good arrow flies through as Teddy's taking a lot of damage. Comeback actually looking to go aggressive as Scepter moves forward, but he's going to go back to base and saves the turret for now with that shockwave on the minion wave.
I mean, you need to do that when you don't necessarily have the most wave clear available, and with the tempo of the push. Jin wanted to brute force down this mid lane turret. They have forced Scepted at least out of lane. They won it on this push to get their last outer turret.
Yeah, another ultimate is going to be used. There's the flag and drag. It is just going to be Umti taking the kill onto comeback. The turret falls down as well. Jin with a brute force.
That's what they have to do. They're continuing on from their draft game plan, but Ever8 are also staunchly doing what they need to do. Helper doesn't have a lot of setup, and that's kind of the disadvantage. If you choose losing lane and you need to build around a Fiora, someone had to lose. In this case, it was largely the Ashe, who has been left out to dry. Setting up for all the different things on the side of Ever8 was largely going to mean that someone lost out, and it's been the Ashe, and the Fiora doesn't necessarily have the coverage either to pull off the split push, and certainly not the items at this point in the game.
Well, now Helper actually does throw down the grand challenge, looking for this tower dive.
Not going to happen.
Yeah, but still has a lot of health regen, so may as well hang out under the turret, make use of that ultimate. Does pressure So1 out of there, who didn't have any mana anyway. Goes back, finishes off that Black Cleaver. Still has a decent CS advantage of about 25. Scepter's going to turn up towards the top side, and he is going the Luden's Echo build. Try and get that early power as quickly as he can.
He's doing his best Crown impression and saying, well, I don't know what's going on in the rest of the map, but I'm going to solo farm in top lane. Hopefully we lose the minimum.
Absolutely.
It's probably partly impacted by the fact that it was a Cloud Drake as the first spawn. No one's taken a Drake in the first 17 minutes of the game, so he feels like he's not going to lose a lot on the other side of the map, just parking himself top, just like Crown did so many times, and even Pawn on the Victor, looking for 3 items before the game really sets off. And sure, a Cloud Drake is given up, but that's still, 5 minutes for Scepter to be top lane picking up farm before he needs to think about recalling and coming in and combating Vision if the next Drake is of higher quality, because I know you and I have casted a lot of Cloud and Ocean days.
Yeah, it was
and
certainly a cloudy week last week.
it's a cloudy day today, both on the Rift and in Seoul.
It's kind of ironic, because last week was super sunny almost every single
But no
day.
Infernals.
Yep, no Infernals, until the very last match, I believe it was. Saturday night. So watch the last one if you really like Infernal Drakes and Mountain Drakes.
So everyone then?
Yeah, it's hot fire here at LCK. Don't worry about it, Pop Smithy. You don't even need the right dragons.
Game plan of Ever8 losing the minimum continues. 3,000 goldish down is fine. But so far it feels like Fiora has been banned based on reputation rather than actual performance in game, as Helper's all alone.
Yeah, he's going to try and lunge his way out of here. The riposte goes down, but he's still going to die. Umpty picks up that kill. Collateral damage doesn't do a lot, but oh my god! That's an explosion of damage onto Snowflower, who does get ripped apart. There's the shockwave as so on. The double kill comes in with Scepter turning up as he does. 5-0-0 now with the completed 2-item power spike.
I don't know if anyone's had a better 6 games in the LCK than Scepter. Already 5-0-0 on his Orianna game. 2,000 gold or 1,600 gold ahead of the Talia, but he's in the right spot. That's the part I think we should talk about. His mechanics already have been on point, but he's in the right spot, ghosting in early, and what looked like it was going to be very one-sided. Jin getting one pick and getting out. Scepter decides, nope, that's not the way it's going to be, and picks up 2 kills for his trouble.
Yeah, I like going for that shockwave as well, just making sure that will definitely get either flashes or anything else, and just solidifies that kill onto So1, makes sure that they are not going to be losing that fight. But 100% of the kills now going over to Scepted. Still Jin with that gold lead of just over 2,000. Despite kill lead going in favor of Ever8, all of those kills being on their massive carry in the mid lane, still not quite winning. And this CS lead by Teddy is grotesque, to say the least.
Yeah, Flame Horizon on AD carry is so uncommon, because usually the AD carry is donated a lot of farm. The stat for Teddy is that post 15 minutes he picks up 34% of all creep score, which lets you know that, hey, there's 3 minion waves and also monsters, and he's picking up 34% of all creeps. That's more than an entire minion wave being given to Teddy, who roams around picking up as much CS as possible. The thing to take away from that is that Duel certainly doesn't get the CS. It's usually Scepted, and when you have a Fiora also needs to pick up a lot of gold. Means that it's a very anemic Ashe, who, if she misses her Ashe arrow, really doesn't accomplish very much.
Yep, the usefulness of Duel just fell to about 0, as there's the Weaver's Wall, but it's not going to cut anyone off.
Wombo time.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of a corridor that they're going to have to walk through. Helper says, well, I've got teleport, I can help you guys out if you want, but it looks like this turret will go to Ever8 winners, and they're going to claw back a little bit of that advantage that Jin Air have accrued for themselves.
Really hard match to evaluate, because if you have a 5-0 Orianna usually, you're like, all right, all she needs is a tank ball carrier and she can make things happen. Remember, it's a Fiora Graves comp. She doesn't really have a ball carrier, so Orianna's effectiveness in the 5v5 is a bit lower than you might expect. Maybe Tom Kench can do his best ball carrier impression, but he usually dies too fast. And the reason why I point that out is that it feels like setting up for Helper is just as important as getting items on the Orianna, because the Fiora will have this inevitable pushing advantage when Black Cleaver is completed, and even now is doing pretty damn well against So1, who's just trying to wave clear in front of the face of the Fiora, and there's the grand challenge, actually.
Yeah, well, Kuzan's going to turn up, so Helper maybe feeling a little bit like that was a mistake, as there's the riposte, so not going to get knocked up. Looking for the damage onto Kuzan, but he's just going to be taken down. Helper can't quite do it, and can Ever8 capitalize somewhere else on the map? And Teddy says, look, no. Quick Draw going to get Malrung out of here. Scepted looking to try and take down this top outer turret. Teddy should get here in time.
Pretty greedy here, Scepted, but he does have Tom Kench coming to back him up, so they do get the turret.
Oh, it's a bit sad, Papa Smithy. Jewel is there. I mean, I know he doesn't have very much farm, but we should still mention that he exists.
That's fair. I don't know if he really needs to be singled out.
I don't know whether it is fair, Papa Smith. I think it's pretty close to him being almost irrelevant. That is getting so close to that flame horizon that you were talking about. The rapid fire cannon done for Teddy. So this Caitlyn moving towards that power spike that Kate's all look for just post mid-game.
And because Duel is so far behind, the damage from Ashe, which always kind of hard to evaluate, is really going to be 45-minute damage. So honestly, Duel and Ever8 need to basically put Orianna and Ashe in the same lane, have them wave clearing and potentially Ashe arrowing for disengage or for a single pick, while Fiora gets the job done. So in this case, it really is the utility Ashe. It's the sort of damage graph that's going to be rough reading from Duel in the post-game unless we go super, super late. So Ever8 need to set up scenarios where they can safely 4-1 and just have Ashe volley and ult and really nothing much more.
Yeah. Well, Scepted is very close to being able to afford his third item, Void Staff, if he wants it. It's so early in the game and so little magic resist has been built up, apart from Kuzan slightly, maybe. But he could go for something like Rabadon's third item. I'd be excited about it, personally.
It's kind of a weird spot, because do you go for Rabadons for extra wave clear? That's an option there. The shield strength is usually the kind of double strength there, and sure, it might be a self-shield, but doesn't really have anyone else to protect. So I think Deathcap's probably the right way to go, just given that, yeah, it's a Banshee Veil and really no other magic resist yet for the side of Jin Air Greenwing.
Yeah, cheeky little null magic mantle for Umpty, but that's not going to be
QSS
enough.
for Teddy as well.
Yeah, that's true, that's true. Opting in for that one, only recently picking that one up. Umpty setting himself up. Possible kill into Jewel here available, as Vision is going to be placed down, but Control Ward is there, denying what Umpty can see.
Back has his quest cashed in.
Nice.
Tell by the shield that regenerates based on time and auto attacks when it's down.
Swirling around him currently.
Comebacks. Quest will invariably also be available, given that he's Karma and one of the easiest champions to proc Spell Thieves on.
Yep.
Does get that extra burst of move speed that's kind of lost, given how many bursts of move speed a Karma gets.
I was going to say, yeah, Snowflower is probably going to be running pretty quickly, irrespective of whether or not he's pressed that.
I mean, for Zyra, right, it's massive, because Zyra is so slow and so frail that any movement speed is massive. But when you hit the cap of movement speed so often as a Karma, then you don't really notice it, because it gets reduced effectiveness when you get high enough move speed.
Diminishing returns and things like that, Papa Smithy. We've had that massive conversation. You guys can go back to a previous broadcast where I think we say diminishing returns about 17 times within a 2-minute period.
And every time I hear your jokes, diminishing returns.
My goodness, we worked together for a long time, Papa Smithy. You must be having an awful time.
A diminished time.
A diminished time, indeed. I was always wondering why you get so frustrated. Now it all makes sense.
Well, Umti is dealing with diminished returns on the Drakes via double cloud for Jin Air. Is helpful for Jarvan to get in range of his targeted initiation, but otherwise not very exciting.
And speaking of Jarvan, he's gone for a Thornmail.
He just doesn't want to die to Fiora.
Yeah, that's one way of doing it. Wants to try and negate some of that lifesteal as well. Like it. Probably won't be enough if he does go for the Bloodthirster build that Fioras do certainly love.
Yeah, Spirit Visage Bloodthirster was the sort of build that Smeb was loving back a year ago. Last time Fiora was meta was around spring of 2017, or 2016, sorry.
Yep.
But haven't seen too much Fiora until this season when Doran's Shield made her laning so much more reliable.
Morong actually going very aggressive with this item build. Has another serrated Dirk after that Black Cleave is done, and the Warrior Enchant.
A lot of shred on the side of Ever8. Helper.
Speaking of shred, yeah, Helper does successfully block out at least part of the damage as Jewel throws down the heal. The rest of Ever8 winners are going to turn up. Everyone is safe, but there's a lot of traps underneath this turret now. We're setting up for the siege on the side of Jinair.
If Scepted can pull off the miracle, get a ultimate, a shockwave onto the side of Teddy, maybe we can see Ever8 win a team fight, but it is going to be very, very difficult to pull off and kind of requires Teddy to make a pretty grave mistake.
I thought that was Morong's job.
Diminished
Sorry.
returns,
Yeah,
Atlas.
I was going to say. Apparently it just works flat out with the quality of the joke as well. It's not even your fault, Pop Smithy. They're just getting worse.
It rarely is my fault, Atlas.
There are a lot of pings onto the Baron, though. Ever8 were wanting to try and get some vision back.
And Scepted's like, well, I'm going to do my best Crown impression. Pick up some farm in the top lane.
Yeah, I spotted there was no one on my team in one of the lanes where there's farm. And Kuzan's there, and he likes killing Kuzan. Already managed to do that.
Got that solo kill early. Ever8 have continued to play the delay game, and honestly, Atlas, it's only 1,000 gold between the teams, so Jinair's early advantages haven't amounted to more than just the gold being kind of awkwardly allocated on the side of Ever8, where Ashe certainly basically Flame Horizoned by Teddy isn't in a great spot, but Helper continues to split push, not with the coverage we asked for, and so we still haven't seen solo kill into Inner or Inhibitor being possible for the Fiora, so far the push and shove hasn't gone as far over to the Fiora as Ever8 really hoped with the drop.
You were talking about sort of which patch we're on. And we've
710.
got a rapid-fire cannon and a static shiv built up, and I'm pretty sure that was a year ago that worked. And at the moment, I believe it doesn't.
Well,
Teddy has picked that one up. Still added wave cliff.
Now, the items are kind of different now when it comes to the way you get, and because Teddy should never be in range of people, Phantom Dance is a little bit less attractive on the Caitlyn when it comes to those things. I heard a ghost, and that was Scepted ghosting.
Well, Umpty's going to take a heck of a lot of damage. Should fall down. Morong's going to be able to grab that kill. Kuzan avoids the arrow, but does have the Banshee's Veil anyway. Jewel takes about 1 billion damage from Teddy. Given the fact that he's so incredibly far behind. Well, that's an 80 carry dead. Now the top lane is still battling, wanting to try and create distance. Is Helper, who wants to try and teleport in. If Ever8 winners are going to go for anything, this inner turret could be the next option.
It was a big mistake from Umti, just thought he was clearing vision and took the Baron aggro and died to the engage from Ever8, so that will slow down things from the side of Jinair. Every time they get slowed, you wonder if the inevitability of Fiora being able to deal with so on will come online. Things like Thornmail do change the equation, but it is true damage on the ultimate, true damage on the passive, and no health built, and so on.
Yeah, Helper still not with a heck of a lot of much. Those first 2 items completed, but otherwise it's just a chain vest.
That's about the most Australian thing you've said in a while. A heck of a lot of much.
Yeah, that's true. Apologize, Pop Smithy. It's a BF sword, though. See whether it's going to turn into a Guardian Angel, which I certainly love on Fiora these days. Of course, it's only a cloth armor, though, so that chain vest feels a little bit confusing.
That's true. Maybe he just built it wanting early power or remembering old Guardian Angel.
Pretty sure Thornmail does magic damage, though. That's going to be a lot of what he's going to be suffering against, so on.
I mean, it is a lot of immediate power, and you can just do some sellbacks and deal with it later, but I do take your point that Guardian Angel is a pretty inevitable pickup for the likes of both Fiora and Jarvan, so it's strange not to see the cloth armor.
I would like him just to go straight Bloodthirster. I mean, I feel like that's the balls to the wall move.
Every time Duel walks up for an order, regrets it. That wasn't a crit either.
No, I think that was just a static shift proc. Ouch.
Static Shiv was retuned for patch 710. Now does a lot more harass damage. Still wave clear as well, but it's more about the proc damage, whereas Rapid Fire Cannon gives you the extra range, but no longer also is the best damage to champions option. So they played around with the identity of a lot of items, including the AD carry ones in this patch.
Just trying to separate them identity-wise. I like it. Teddy utilizing that one quite effectively. You mentioned not necessarily as much wave clear, but that certainly did very, very well. Still, the proc able to crit, now with 3 crit items. Teddy feeling very, very happy. Caitlyn well and truly online, wanting to build towards that Mercurial Scimitar by the looks of things for item number 4.
Flame Horizon online as well, Atlas. So Teddy,
oh, yeah.
All the eggs in the Teddy basket, all the eggs in the Scepted basket. I really hope we do see a true 5v5, even if Ever8 haven't really drafted for it, because it just fits the storyline so well. And just the Jin Air and Ever8 playstyles that we've seen so far in summer.
And given the strength of both of these carries as well in this game, it is going to be won or lost on their back. And currently, we're within 100 gold touching distance for both teams. 32 minutes. It feels like a Jin Air game, Papa Smithy, as this one's going relatively slowly. But I'm still feeling on the edge of my seat. It's not often that you talk about a Jin Air game where you're feeling on the edge of your sleep. Is Ever8 win the edge of your sleep? That was Freudian. So Ever8 winners are going to start off the Baron.
And there's no vision here at all from Jin Air. They had the vision control around Baron almost the entire game. They had the pressure the entire game. They lost it for a second. Now might not get there.
Well, Ingo.
He does!
Oh my God, just in the right places. Ingo's so on as well. Scepted, take it out at the very beginning, and now it's all falling apart for Ever8 winners. 3 kills, a Baron. Helper, the only man standing doing anything of note right now for Ever8 winners. And 3,000 gold the lead, and only more to come for Jin Air.
And Ever8 thought they lulled Jin Air into a false sense of security. They had no intention of drawing Helper. They were doing the same game plan, but Jin Air realized, wait, a lot of people are off the map and we've lost our vision around Baron for one of the first times in the game. The punishment with the steal from is massive, and they will lose at minimum inhibitor after the first spurt of action in about 30 minutes.
And Teddy is so strong. They might even try and keep pushing forward. 12 seconds to go on Scepted and Malrong. As Jewel, he's up.
Someone did a really good job of protecting one of his vital spots, and thus didn't actually get the healing field, but I don't think he can walk up. That was a bit silly.
Yeah, it does at least have himself the shield.
No mana.
Oh, this is cute. Redemption comes down. So on now with the life lead. The knock-up was very close to not being there, and Teddy just pops in and says, I'll take that. Cheers. Cheers for starting it off. Good leash on the top laner.
So we see the replay, the first time they'd lost vision around, and I didn't even think he could get there, but because they DPS down the Baron with the ultimate, it was in ripe spot for a smite steal. Flash smite, about as alpha as can be from and the cleanup from there. Teddy is effectively a Nexus laser as he walks around. A fountain laser, I should say. He is incredibly powerful, insanely ahead of his opposition, and all the damage was done by the Baron. It was low health members, and the cleanup for the Caitlyn was just too easy.
It was. It most certainly was. Goes back, finishes off Mercurial Scimitar, gets himself the last Whisper as well. Teddy is so close to just being the only man necessary to win this game.
And that's why you wonder about the last pick, Fiora, because it feels like Ever8 has to do too many things to win the game. Ward for the Fiora, set up for Helper as the carry, which that wasn't really their game plan previously. They don't really have a ball carrier for the Orianna in accordance with it, and Orianna may end this game, way ahead as Cruzan got a bit too tricky there. Ash arrow.
Yep, close, but Cruzan has enough shields to keep himself alive, even if that arrow had a hit. Should have been okay.
Scepter could be 0-3 on Orianna, despite frequently having the best run of plays in the early game. He was 5-0, holding his team together just 20 minutes ago.
Just not exactly gluey enough. Is Scepter this time around. His performance cannot be doubted. But it was just the rest of the map not being able to hold itself together. And I think what you said about draft is the most important as well, because it's not necessarily that Ever8 winners were playing poorly. The Baron call made sense, and actually trying to get the damage down onto the Baron as well. It was so close to just not having the opportunity to make it into that pit.
But just explaining the game plan from both sides is so much more complicated for one, and Jin is so straightforward. Hey, all the lanes are pushing, get items onto Teddy, take bot turret. I predicted how this game would go in the early game based on the draft, and they played to a simple draft, whereas Ever8 had a bit of a muddy draft, and it's been so much more complicated for them to actually set things into motion, and the moment they did, they got a small advantage, but Jin Air, they stepped through the open door that was stealing the Baron, and now it feels like Ever8 don't have a way back into the game.
Yeah, Scepted actually getting chunked out here as well. Teddy's range just too high. His comeback, look at all this damage, the Grey health. Oh god, just one crit.
I said Fountain Laser. I wasn't joking, by the
you
way.
were not.
Teddy is ridiculously strong and so long range. He might die, though.
Oh, very, very close. Has to flash. The arrow is going to land onto Umti. Redemption comes down to try and keep them alive. Oh, God! Teddy so close to falling to that collateral damage from Malrung. But unfortunately, not quite enough. God, he's got so much farm. Teddy's just so big.
Yeah, only 10% lifesteal, so we'll actually be forced out. Nice ultimate from Scepted. We talked about, hey, could you find a way to Orianna ultimate a Caitlyn? Usually impossible task. Found a way and bought some more time. But now, how is Helper going to get the ward coverage to actually win the split push? So1 is now gone for the Gargoyle Stone Plate and a Thorn Mail. So it's literally an engage build, but also a, well, I got ulted by Fiora, I'm going to just pop this and be okay build. So he's just trying to buy time to teleport out. And the 4-man roster of Jin will be stronger than the 4-man roster of Ever8. That's just how the draft went. So making this work for Ever8, looking impossible.
Yeah, so1 just nullifying what Helper's trying to do, and it feels like the Ever8 composition, like you said, trying to do too much, but has been generally nullified by how Jin has played this game out. Because what it is make Scepted being strong relatively irrelevant.
And the thing is, I feel like whatever comp you want to play falls into position if you have pushing lanes. But pushing lanes kind of the bedrock upon which all comps are made. A 4-1 push with Fiora is great if you have 2 pushing lanes and you can play around the Fiora and get vision for the Fiora. But in this game, Fiora's had to push without vision because they never had the latitude to put down those wards that I keep harping on about, just given the draft. So there are smart parts. This comp from Ever8 can work, but the liberties of having 3 losing lanes is too much.
Scepted actually moving forward here. Ever8 winners, they do invest the teleport in as Kuzan was waiting off to the side, probably looking for that Weaver's Wall. Cancel out any engagement. One last inhibitor remaining for Ever8 winners as they're going to have to tend to the rest of their lanes. The super creeps are going to be pushing in very soon for Jin, who are waiting patiently, moving ever closer to this last remaining inhibitor. Here goes so1, taking a lot of damage though. Shockwave flashed out of.
It's down
That's
now.
a big cooldown, yeah, that they don't have. And that's just another Weaver's Wall to guarantee an inhibitor.
Yeah, no threat now with the ultimate on cooldown from Scepted. They're able to push up. That means it's going to be a second inhibitor. They have to respect the ball if that ultimate is up. But now for another 20 seconds at least, they're safe.
Yeah, very, very close to having another one though. Of course, a lot of cooldown reduction towards level 18 in that Shockwave, but it's not going to buy them enough time. Arrow sails gallantly through the middle of the team as Jewel, what was that, like 2 auto attacks, Papa Smithy?
I mean, he's getting chunked out by random static shiv procs off minions half the time.
God.
That is how much damage Teddy is doing.
Just silly. The fact that that can crit as well is just kind of gross.
The critical strike modifier still there and certainly apparent. And now 3 inhibitors are down. Jin will pull away. 2 team fights in the late game at 40 to 50 minutes. Ever8 will hope against hope, but every other objective on the map seems like it's going to be too much.
Well, Elder Drake's going to be up in 20 seconds as well as, okay, Malrung, you are dead, and Comeback delivered him to that death and is going to have his own. Oh, that was almost a riposte that he didn't want to do. Scepted taking a lot of damage. There's the Cataclysm, forcing out the flash immediately, and Scepted's flash is so important for Ever8 if they want any chance of dealing with Teddy. Now Jin Greenwings looking to try and finish this game off. Jewel, you can't take another auto attack, buddy, and he's not going to, but that means he's not going to be able to defend as his Nexus turrets are getting evaporated by this Caitlyn. The Nexus going to fall down, and Jin Greenwings with a textbook victory will take game 1.
New age Jin Greenwings are so good to watch. They draft smartly, they play to their win conditions. Really good to see. I'm going to call out Comeback, Hachani, whatever you want to call him. Ridiculous use of the Tahm Kench ultimate to basically seal the fate of an Ever8 team that, sure, was likely to lose, but you cannot, at 40 minutes into the game, Abyssal Voyage into no vision and give over your jungler
especially with
to
a
his
Hawk
death.
shot that was already on its way.
Ridiculous. Really poor, and Hachani or Comeback is in the lineup for Shotcoin. That's why Ella is not playing. That was not a great one, and look, you will not be judged based on one call in one game, but wasn't pretty to watch there from Comeback. And Ever8 had some ideas, but it was kind of one of those dartboards where they threw in different quadrants, tried to make it work, and Jin had the razor-sharp focus play to that focus, Teddy did Teddy things, and in the Teddy versus Scepted battle, Teddy takes first blood.
Yeah, they most certainly had the answers. Once again, we need an honorable mention to Scepted, who played phenomenally well, had so much of the gold for the team. You can see him now leading the conversation with Ever8 winners to get them back into the right mindset for game number 2. Remember, it is a best of 3, so they can just back-to-back wins here, and Ever8 winners can take this series out.
Yeah, Scepter just needed more eggs in his basket, ironically. He needed to be the one that the game was playing around, but the moment you lock in Fiora, the game can't just be about an Orianna, and that really let them down.
Yeah, most certainly did. But Jin just looking so incredibly strong. We are going to go to a short break, but when we come back, game number 2 between Jin and Ever8.